So the final saga of One Piece has finally started, and yet there are so many mysteries, so many challenges, and so many opponents left to deal with. With the exception of some mysterious new threats though, I have noticed a slight pattern when it comes to the opponent still standing between the Straw Hats and Laugh Tale. And this pattern, which I will explain in a moment, could actually be hugely important in figuring out what is going to happen in the future of One Piece and exactly when it will happen. I understand a lot of you have an attention span worse than Zoro though, so I'm just going to cut the intro short and get on with explaining the theory. But to give you a very quick glimpse at the video's conclusion, I'll just say this. Doflamingo, Enel, Cross Guild, and many other familiar faces are going to be very important very soon. So make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into discussing Oda's geniusly planned final gauntlet. Everybody should already know that Oda has recently been putting a lot of emphasis on the Gorosei, Imu, and Garling as the big bad guys of One Piece right now. However, Oda has also done a very good job at making sure that all of your attention is on them instead of the other major threats that have been sneakily set up in the shadows. I am of course talking about the likes of Doflamingo, Gecko Moria, Crocodile, Buggy, and Mihawk, as well as some other less villainous characters like Koby and Shanks. The pattern that I have noticed, which I mentioned in the intro, is that all of these villains and obstacles seem to form a sort of gauntlet that perfectly parallels the first half of One Piece. I mean, think about it, yeah? One Piece began with Luffy setting Koby down his path of becoming a legendary marine. Luffy then faces off against Buggy, followed by Zoro's encounter with Mihawk, and then the crew were all tasked with taking down Crocodile in Alabasta. Buggy, Mihawk, Crocodile, these are the first three important and recurring antagonists that the Straw Hats ever face on their journey. So do you really think that it's a coincidence that Oda chose these three to form Cross Guild in order to beat Luffy to the One Piece? No, because coincidences aren't real, especially when Oda is in charge. What's more though, is that we have recently faced off with Rob Lucci and that freaky giraffe guy whose name I totally remember. Koku? That doesn't sound right. But yeah, their recent bout with Cypherpole only supports my theory that we are actually retracing our steps and running it back for the final leg of the journey to Laugh Tale. Of course, this idea is supported by the fact Doflamingo and Gecko Moria are still knocking about, and Oda very clearly has plans for them. So if we continue with the assumption that the final saga is meant to somewhat parallel the Straw Hats' journey up until this point, then we should be able to pretty accurately deduce what events are going to unfold, what opponents we are going to face, and in what order, and of course, who is actually going to make it to Laugh Tale. I mean, if we are working backwards, then Doflamingo is likely going to be a more immediate threat since his Dressrosa arc was the most recent, followed by Gecko Moria with Thriller Bark, Spandam with Enies Lobby, Enel at Skypiea, Crocodile at Alabasta, and then of course Mihawk, Buggy, and Koby in the beginning East Blue saga. Blackbeard and Shanks are also sprinkled throughout a load of key moments, but we'll kind of get into that more a little bit later. For now, we're gonna start things off by discussing the potential threat of Doflamingo's return. Doflamingo is currently being held at Impel Down, where we occasionally get to see him just kind of vibing. But for the love of God, will somebody please give this man his medication, because every time we see him, he's either talking to himself or cackling maniacally at a newspaper. This is not normal behavior, guys. But I guess the very fact that he's still being shown by Oda cackling at newspapers should suggest that he still has a role to play in the story. What's even more suggestive of this is the fact that Trafalgar Law, a character heavily tied to Doflamingo, actually managed to survive and escape Blackbeard, even though it seems that his counterpart Kid couldn't do the same in his Yonko encounter. And yeah, that was just a really fancy way of me saying Law's the goat and Kid's a bum and Shanks is also a... Shut up! Now, Law will definitely be back, mainly because I think he will definitely die using the Eternal Youth surgery that he can perform with the Opiopi no Mi. Perhaps he will end up imprisoned right next to Doflamingo in Impel Down, and then they'll form a temporary alliance to escape, which would very nicely parallel Luffy's team up with Crocodile back in the Summit War arc. But this is just me spitballing ideas, okay? I know it's probably not gonna happen like that. I'm also assuming that Doflamingo will be the first antagonist to return due to Dressrosa being more recent. But if we are running it back like I think, then he very well might not be a threat for a while, since he was actually properly introduced all the way back near Skypiea and Jaya, I think. And since Charlotte Pudding has also been captured by Blackbeard, we may actually see a Katakuri return first, since the Whole Cake Island arc was actually after Dressrosa. But unlike Dofi, I don't think Katakuri is going to be an obstacle ill for the Straw Hats at all. If anything, he will have an encounter with Law, since Law killed Big Mom and is tied to both Blackbeard and Doflamingo. I very well may be overthinking this, but when you actually connect the dots, it does all kind of make sense. Either way, I am certain Doflamingo's return is coming, but I'm also certain that he will be dealt with long before anybody reaches Laugh Tale. So let's move on to some more exciting stuff. Now, if we continue to retrace our steps, we will eventually reach the Thriller Bark arc, which ex-Warlord Gecko Moria was the main antagonist of. And surprise, surprise, who was recently captured and then saved from Blackbeard? That's right, Gecko Moria. Actually, he was saved by Perona, who has spent the last few months getting all cozy with Mihawk in his Dracula-ass mansion. Considering this is an ex-Warlord, I think it's very likely that he actually ends up joining Cross Guild with Perona. However, I don't think Gecko Moria is the type to return and simply be another opponent for somebody to fight and beat. We kind of have enough of those already. I think Oda has actually made it very clear that Moria's true importance lies with his devil fruit, the Kage Kage no Mi. Mihawk and Crocodile teaming up and deciding to aim for the One Piece already makes them a massive threat, but if you add Gecko Moria's weird zombie power to the mix, then they could become damn near unbeatable. I mean, imagine he builds an army of zombies for Cross Guild using the shadows of skilled fighters and the bodies of even stronger fighters. I mean, sure, it would just be their body without a devil fruit, but imagine Moria recovered Kaido's corpse or Whitebeard's corpse and then made Yonko level characters like them into zombies who work for Cross Guild. I mean, sure, they would be way weaker than the real thing, depending on the shadows he puts in them, but it would still make Cross Guild one of the strongest crews around. Assuming, of course, that Mihawk really isn't just all talk. I mean, I do low-key still think he might have just painted his blade black, but hey, that's just me. But yeah, my prediction is that Gecko Moria will soon have a big role to play and will likely end up joining Cross Guild in their hunt for the One Piece. The next step in our journey back down the One Piece timeline should be Eni's lobby in Spandam. However, Spandam seems to already be making moves due to his involvement with Cypherpole, so I'm just gonna let him do his thing. Before Eni's lobby in Water 7 though, we have Sky Pier, which is arguably one of, if not the most important arcs in all of One Piece. If you want to know why, then make sure to go watch my recent Joy Boy Theory video, because I think it's amazing. But like, seriously, please go watch it. It actually just needs all the help it can get. Long story short though, I think Enel's return is all but inevitable at this point. I don't exactly know when or why Enel will be back, but trust me, he will. In fact, it may be during this Elbaf arc, since it's likely going to rival Skypiea in terms of importance, and already they share the massively important theme of Guds? What the f*** are Guds? I was saying that it might be during this Elbaf arc because it's likely going to rival Skypiea in terms of importance, and they already share the massively important theme of gods and the sun god. This idea of gods has become more and more prominent post-time skip, and it all started in Skypiea with Enel, who introduced us to this theme in the first place. Following that arc, he ended up on the moon and then somehow came across a literal civilization of robots. Yeah, that definitely seems important, especially since the sun and moon already hold so much weight in the story. But hopefully he will return with at least a teaspoon of Haki or some weird next level moon weapons, because otherwise he might just be an Usopp victim. Okay, for legal reasons, I feel like I need to say that's a joke. Anyway, Enel is coming, so be ready for it. Again, though, I don't think Enel will be involved at all once we finally reach Laugh Tale, which cannot necessarily be said for who we are going to be discussing next. That's right, it's time for the main event. It's time we talk about Cross Guild and the roles Crocodile, Mihawk, and Buggy have to play in the final saga of One Piece. Like I've already said, it's no coincidence that this newly formed alliance of 3 ex-warlords happen to also be the first 3 big recurring antagonists that the Straw Hats ever face. It's pretty clear to me that Crocodile, Mihawk, and Buggy are each going to be heavily involved with the final leg of the journey, and probably in that exact order too, with them maybe even making it onto Laugh Tale itself. At least I'm 99% certain that Buggy will. Hell, he might even become Pirate King, at least temporarily. Crocodile, Princess Vivi, Nico Robin, and Pluton are already pretty closely connected, so it's clear that he'll definitely have a role to play moving forwards. However, I definitely think Crocodile is going to be the least important member of Cross Guild, even though him returning as a potential opponent will play very nicely into that parallel with how the Straw Hats journey started versus how it will end. We are literally running back the clock on this shit. This, however, brings us on to the most exciting exciting part of the long-awaited cross-guild Straw Hats clash, and that, of course, is Dracul Mihawk, the world's strongest swordsman. Mihawk versus Zoro is perhaps one of the most highly anticipated fights in all of anime, let alone One Piece, and that's because it was set up all the way back in the East Blue Saga at the Baratie. Mihawk is what stands between Roronoa Zoro and his dream of becoming the world's greatest swordsman. Beating Mihawk is literally how the first mate of the Straw Hat crew will achieve his dream. Now, some people think that Zoro will need to defeat the likes of Fujitora and other strong swordsmen before claiming his title, but as much as I think this could definitely happen, it doesn't really need to. I mean, Mihawk and Fujitora have literally never fought, and Mihawk never outright beat Shanks, yet he keeps his title anyway. I feel like saying Zoro can't become the strongest swordsman without beating all other swordsmen is like saying Sukuna can't be titled the strongest in history because we never saw him beat Miwa. It's just not necessary, you know? The idea is, though, that Mihawk will inevitably fight Zoro towards the end of the manga, either right before Laugh Tale or actually on Laugh Tale, since their original encounter happens very near the beginning of the story. To be honest, the only thing that I find somewhat underwhelming about this is that we do already know the outcome. Okay, sorry, quick side rant here, but one of the problems that I actually have with One Piece in general is that there's a severe lack of stakes whenever a Straw Hat fights someone. You just already know that they're going to win. I'll put it like this, okay? If Oda put Usopp in a genuine fight to the death against an admiral, then my money would be on Usopp, despite the fact that that makes no sense power scaling wise. Side rant over. Anyway, assuming my theory that we are retracing our steps is accurate though, there will only be one leader of Cross Guild left after Zoro takes his title from Mihawk, and that will be Buggy the Clown. And this is where we start to probably get into Laugh Tale territory because I am certain Buggy will make it there. Buggy is the first proper antagonist that Luffy ever faces in the East Blue Saga and has remained an important character all the way through the story. Also, the fact that he fell sick and couldn't make it to Laugh Tale with Roger the first time should definitely suggest that he will this time, maybe even alongside Shanks for the same reason. I actually quite like the theory that Buggy will become king of the pirates and find the One Piece only for him to then be dethroned by Luffy. After all, I can't imagine Luffy would really give a shit as long as he ends the story as king of the pirates. Buggy just has a way of accidentally stumbling into success to make up for how weak he is, so him making it all the way to Laugh Tale and finding the One Piece won't shock me one bit. Who I'm gonna talk about now, though, isn't actually a villain at all, more so a crucial character who I believe will be heavily involved with finding the One Piece. Judging by the fact that Koby began his journey to fulfill his dream even earlier than Buggy did, I would not be surprised if Koby is right there with Luffy when he finds the One Piece. Now, some people actually think that Koby will be Luffy's final opponent, but as much as I don't think this is out of the question, I see things going slightly differently. My theory is that one of, if not the final step to claiming the One Piece will actually involve Koby and Luffy working together to defeat Blackbeard and his crew. This would perfectly parallel the God Valley incident when Roger and Garp teamed up to defeat the Rocks pirates. I mean, Blackbeard is already suggested to be the new Rocksteady Zebek, and it's very clear that Blackbeard takes a lot of inspiration from Zebek. Luffy, of course, is the new generation's Gold D Roger, as he is inevitably going to become king of the pirates, and Koby has also recently been set up to be the new generation's Garp. Hell, Koby was recently rescued by Garp from Blackbeard, who now has Garp held hostage, meaning that the motivation is definitely there for Koby. Now, the One Piece itself is actually implied to have a major role when it comes to saving everybody from whatever evil flooding shit Imu has planned. So I think it's very likely that Luffy will claim his title as King of the Pirates and then pass the One Piece over to Koby, since Luffy has said time and time again that he is not a hero. In contrast to this though, Koby strives to be the new hero of the Marines and do what Garp never felt like he managed to do. His alliance with Luffy will allow them to both achieve their dreams and save the world from Imu's mysterious bullshit. So yeah, the overall point of this video is that we seem to be running shit back as a parallel to the beginning of Luffy's journey to find the One Piece, which will one by one lead to the return of these villains and then eventually lead to the main event of Mihawk versus Zoro, Luffy and Koby versus Blackbeard, and then Luffy finding the One Piece only to pass it on to Koby so Koby can be a world-saving hero. That's pretty much it, to be honest. So as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed and want to see more. Feel free to join the Discord and follow me on Twitter, links below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in a bit.